The views and opinions expressed by the participants on this show are not necessarily those of Stewart Information Services Corporation, Stewart Title, or Stewart Insurance. Before you make any investment, you should seek the advice of your investment advisor or attorney.
Whether you're a real estate broker, realtor, homeowner, buyer, or seller, everything matters when it comes to real estate. This is Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Stewart Title's Bill Knapik and guests open the door to what really matters in owning, buying, and selling real estate. And now, Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, brought to you by Stewart Insurance. Here to inform, entertain, and inspire, Bill Knapik.
Welcome to the show. It is Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. I am your host, Bill Knapik. Thank you for joining us. I want to remind you to go to Stewart.com. Once again, Stewart.com/radio. That's where you can hear and see the show again and again, or go to past shows. And that is Stewart.com/radio. Stewart.com/radio. The real estate market is hot, not just here in Houston, Texas, but all over the place, it seems like, and we all want to know how long that's going to last. We have a lot of questions right here in Houston or wherever you're listening. In fact, after the time of broadcast, many of you hear the show on the internet, various platforms, so we want to know what's going on, and there is not a better guest to answer some of those questions and to give us new questions to think about. He is our chief economist at Stewart Title. His name is Dr. Ted C. Jones. He is formerly the chief economist at the Texas A&M Real Estate Center and also one of the very unique Stewart distinctions, just like this radio show. Here he is, and I call him the eighth wonder of the real estate world, Dr. Ted C. Jones. Ted, welcome to the show.
Oh, Bill, it's an honor to be back with you. I really enjoy working with you. I hope you know that. This is great.
That is awesome. And as far as the real estate talk, what you do, you are so unique in the field of real estate as an economist because you are, it's 24/7. You're always thinking about it. You're always researching things. So what we hear from you today or at any time in your various public appearances, it's always well thought out information, and it's right up to the moment. So we're glad you're here. Where do we want to start? There's so many questions and so many things to talk about. How about the U.S. economy?
Love it. Go, let's run for it. I like that.
So the U.S. economy, our country is so big, so different, and so many things affect each and every market, each and every real estate, residential, and commercial market. What's going on with the economy overall through the eyes of you, a chief economist at Stewart Title and beyond even?
So there's always one single number that tells how well the U.S. as an aggregate's doing. Remember, every local market's different. Yeah. Tyler, Texas may be doing bad, and Austin may be booming. That could reverse. That's the way the economy works. But that one statistic you want to look at for the general economy is GDP, gross domestic product. That's the value of all the goods and services produced by the country in any given year. And what they do is they adjust it for inflation so that you want to make sure you're growing more than inflation, because inflation kind of blurs what you're actually gaining. And go back since the early 1980s, I think there's been any president that would have given their little pinky fingertip if they could have gotten a 4% GDP growth. And here's the current forecast, latest as of this past week. It's one of my blogs. One of my tweets, DRTCJ. Follow me on Twitter, DRTCJ. I don't talk politics. I talk economics and real estate. But here's the current forecast for this year. Bank of America says the U.S. will grow 4.5%. Goldman Sachs says 5.5%. The New York Federal Reserve staff, 3.5%. And then just head on down the road to Atlanta. The Atlanta Federal Reserve staff says 6.1%. That's phenomenal. Every one of those are incredible. Now, I have to tell you, a large amount of that is a function of the $1.2 trillion stimulus package that's already been passed. Those forecasts I just gave you do not assume anything else. No $1.2 trillion infrastructure. And in other words, I got to back up. That $1.9 trillion has been passed. The $1.2 trillion infrastructure has not been passed. And remember, the President Biden's asking for $3.5 trillion of other we're going to build stuff, whether it's internet or people or whatever. That's not assuming that. And one of the big concerns we have right now is if you pass these other packages, the $1.2 trillion and the $3.5 trillion, who's going to do them? Because we're technically at full employment today. Technically, as defined by the Federal Reserve. And in fact, we have 10.1 million job openings. We've never had that many job openings in history. So if you put all these other jobs on the table, what you're going to have is workers being able to demand a lot more money, which will cause inflation to rise even further. And that's one of the big concerns we have. So you can ask, well, why is President Biden pushing for the $1.2 trillion infrastructure and the $3.5 trillion other big spending plan? And the answer is, you got to say the third thing he's also asked for is he wants to increase taxes on he calls them the wealthy, the high-income people. And let's be honest, this is one of my tweets from this past week from the Tax Policy Center. 60.6% of American households in 2020 paid zero federal income taxes, none whatsoever. So you already have 6 out of 10 people last year. Now, a large amount of that was because of COVID, tax credits and everything else. You already have a large number of people who aren't paying any taxes. But if you want to increase the tax, you're going to increase the taxes on the 40% that do pay taxes. And the concern is if you increase those taxes, they won't have as much incentive to grow, and that you actually could see the economy slow down. So he wants to increase the taxes, but if he does that, he's got to have that extra spending to offset that to make sure the economy doesn't head into recession, economically speaking. So right now, even without any other tax plans, this next 12 months looks really good. Now that could be voided. We could have another 9/11, heaven forbid. We could have not the Delta variant. We could have the Lambda variant, which is out of South America, Central America, which evidently is even more infectious and deadly. Who knows what's going to happen? There's all kinds of things. It's easy to forecast trends. They just keep going until they happen. It's that doggone event that changed that trend that's difficult to forecast.
And boy, are we seeing in the last decade, and just take the last couple of years, have we seen things happen in a crazy way. When you're talking about the gross national product, one of the things I think about, I don't even know if it applies, is that there are many businesses, as you said, that need help. There's restaurants that can't find workers. There's all sorts of, even hospitals can't find workers. The other thing, as far as the gross national product, there are so many, I've never heard about more shortages of everything as far as having a product available. Some products are hard to get. Computer chips. I even read in the Wall Street Journal maybe a month ago there was a shortage of foam to put inside sofas and other soft things. So we've seen shortages of every kind. It seems to be hard to get any kind of products cranked out at this point in time.
It is difficult, and part of that's logistics. We call it logistics. They may make it in China, or they may be made in Colombia, South America, but getting it where it needs to go is logistics, and what we have is a logistics system that was running at max speed. We kind of shut it down for a little while, and it's hard to spool it back up, and that's where we're sitting today on the logistics side. But that said, jobs are still everything to economy, and think about this in this downturn. Go back to February of 2020. Never in history. Well, let me put this in perspective. Let me go back to 2008, before the housing bubble burst. From 2008 to the trough of the Great Recession, we lost 8 million jobs over 24 months. From February 2020, in March and April, literally in 60 days, we lost 22.4 million jobs. Almost 3 times as many as we lost in the Great Recession. Now, the difference is that we've got back about 75% of those jobs already. The problem is a lot of those jobs are never going to come back because we figured out how to do things differently without them. We'll talk jobs in a minute. Let me use, and of course, we live in Houston, and you got to say, well, all right, remember I told you about this, the U.S. recovering? We're not recovering as quickly in Houston, even though we didn't lose as many jobs. Part of it's oil and gas. But let me tell you what every business is doing today, and I'm going to use the oil and gas industry as an example. Now, I'm old enough, Bill, I'm 67. You and I remember well back to 1972, 73. In 73, OPEC came about, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. And they decided they were just going to cut back oil production. And when they did, oil prices exploded because we didn't produce a lot of oil in the U.S. We produced some, but not nearly enough for our own consumption. So we're going to do fast track. And in the U.S., we literally got up to almost 1,500 drilling rigs active in the U.S. back in 2014. That's a lot. And in 2020, we got all the way down to 100 and change. It's the fewest number of drilling rigs we'd seen since 1972 and 73 before the start of OPEC. And so you say, well, how does oil and gas industry survive that? So think about this picture. Go back to 2014 when oil was well over $100 a barrel. And then all of a sudden, literally within 12 months, oil was down to the $20, high $20. And, oil and gas stayed in business. And then we came out, and literally a year ago, last recent years until now, we were a net oil exporter in the United States, even though we had the fewest drilling rigs in history in 2020. And of course, good news is oil's come back since then, but not to where it was. So I want to show you how the oil industry survived, because I guarantee you every business in America is doing this. So if you got a pencil, pull it out and just take a few notes. In 2014, the average price per barrel in the U.S. for the year was $93 and change. We had 525,000 people working in extraction and support on oil and gas. We produced 8.8 million barrels. So, all right. Fast forward to 2020. Price dropped 58%. It went from $93.26 to $39.16. Imagine if whatever you sold or made was now worth 60% less of what it was 6 years ago. That's exactly what happened to oil and gas. But you got to stay in business. So what they did is they upped production from about 8.8 million barrels per day. Back in 2020, we produced 11.3 million barrels per day. So we ended up producing, well, we'll round it off, 30% more. Prices were 60% less, but we did that with 40% fewer workers. So here we are in 2020, compared to 2014. We're getting 60% less for oil. We're producing 30% more with 40% fewer workers. Oh, and 76% fewer drilling rigs. Corporate America, oil and gas included, just changed the way we did business. Had to survive. I guarantee you every business in America is doing the same thing today. In these uncertain times, you have business America running lean and mean. They want to make sure they survive in the future. And to do that, you got to control your expenses. You control your P's and Q's, your pints and quarts, as I used to say. So we're doing business a different way. So you want to talk about Houston jobs and everything else now?
Well, before we do that, one thing I'm thinking about as we think about the U.S. as a big picture is movement. And it relates to Houston. We've heard about all the people, and we see them moving. I saw an Ohio license plate the other day. I haven't seen that one lately, but we have people moving to Houston. We have people moving to Texas. But what else is going on with this movement in other places before we zero down here into Houston?
So let's talk about the pandemic. The pandemic really didn't start a lot of new trends. It accelerated existing trends. One of those trends was we were already buying online e-commerce. We just bought a lot more. One of those trends was that people like me and you, I don't know about you, but I've always just needed the last 25 years. I've already done 85 plane flights this year alone. Did 97 last year. I learned I didn't need an office. I need connectivity. I need Wi-Fi. And as long as I have, my job's different, your job's different too. As long as we have this internet connectivity, Wi-Fi connectivity, we can work from any place else. 90% of the rest of America found out the same thing. They found out they didn't need to be in their office to do their job. We're going to talk about offices later. Remind me about this one. And then the third thing we did was we already had people migrating out of the extremely high population density states and high tax states. According to the Tax Foundation, the 5 worst states tax-wise to do business in. Number 1, New Jersey. Number 2, California. Number 3, think about this one, New York. Number 4, Connecticut. Number 5, Minnesota. And then you look at the states who are the best states tax-wise to do business in. Well, all right, some of them they may not migrate to. Wyoming, number 1, lowest taxes in the country according to the Tax Foundation in 2021. Number 2, South Dakota. South Dakota, the last 2 quarters, has posted the biggest GDP growth of any state in the country because people from high tax, high density locations are moving into South Dakota. They feel comfortable there, and it's a great economy. And then number 3, Alaska. Unless you're a caribou guide or a fisher person, you're probably not moving to Alaska. But number 4 is the big winner, and that's an economy that's booming more than almost any economy in the country right now, Florida. Now, we always think Texas is great. We're the 11th best. We're the 11th best place to do business tax-wise. We don't have a corporate income tax. No, we don't have a personal income tax. We've got 2 really nasty issues. Our property taxes are what I would call obscene. If you own any real estate here, whether you're commercial or residential, you know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
And the second one is we have a corporate franchise tax. Corporations only pay an income tax when they make money. You always pay a corporate franchise tax. I'll never forget the head of real estate for Dow Chemical. This is 30 years ago, telling me he wasn't going to build another plant in Texas because there's 5 of the states he could go to. He says, yeah, they might have a corporate state income tax, but you only pay it when you make money. So we have some tax issues in Texas, 11th best. Still, on the other hand, when I was at Texas A&M as a professor, there was a professor there, Dr. Melvin Greenhut, now deceased, unfortunately. London School of Economics said he's one of the best 200 economists of all time. And his specialty is, why do businesses move to where they want to move to?
That's about 10 shows we could do right there. That is a great topic.
It is.
No doubt.
But here's what he came up with. First of all, you got to have jet service. And look at, just look at Houston and Austin, Texas, and then throw in Dallas, Fort Worth with DFW, one of the top busiest airports in the country. We have great air infrastructure. You got to have jet service. Number 2, you got to have rail service. Number 3, and this is a big winner for Houston, if you're in the type of industry that needs transportation, you really either need ocean port, water barge, river. We have the second largest port in the country in Houston, Galveston area, which is phenomenal. You got to have interstate highways. We got those. And here's the gotcha. You got to be someplace the CEO wants to live. And so what we're seeing, particularly in Austin, why do you think Austin's getting so many more Fortune 500 companies relocating out of San Jose and Silicon Valley and San Francisco area? Because people like the hill country. They like to live there. And that's one of the reasons that Austin's been. Has all those other things, plus where people want to live.
Last week's Wall Street Journal, I think it was, if you saw it, Austin, it's saying that they're getting premiums $100,000 over the listing price. I forget what that was in the Wall Street Journal, but I'm thinking $100,000, that's high.
One of my
over the listing price, which has already risen.
That's right. Well, and you need to look at my tweets. Follow me on Twitter, DRTCJ. One of my tweets this past week, was the 10 most overvalued residential markets in the country. Number 1's Boise, Idaho. This is from Florida Atlantic University and another school in Florida. So this isn't a Texas-based analysis. I think number 2, they said Austin. By the way, Boise was 80% overvalued from normal. Austin's over 50% overvalued for normal. But people are willing to pay the premium to live here. And that's the key. Where the CEO is willing to live or wants to live, pretty much essential to where we all want to live, particularly in this work-from-home culture that we have today.
I want to rewind just a second. When you mentioned Wyoming, I did some research there about a year ago or so, and I was researching tax-friendly places to retire, to live, and as you said, Wyoming's primo in that way. But one of the things is in Cody, Wyoming, not only do you have the benefits of Wyoming's tax climate, like I think if it's $100,000, the tax you were paying on a property might have been $600, something just crazy low. So, but in Cody, you're close enough to Billings, Montana, where you get an extra tax bonus because there's no sales tax in Montana. So you could live in the friendly environment in Wyoming, go buy your stuff at the Costco in Billings, and then drive back across the border. It's tax nirvana as close as you can get, I guess.
Evidently, but then they do have winters there, but they don't have hurricanes there.
But
so
it's super cold.
That's right.
In fact, you had said, Ted, I think that you were up there one time and that the animals were frozen. How sad is that?
Yeah, my dad and I had gone
cold.
my dad sells superfine wool breeding rams to the Western Range industry, and I can remember driving up there. All these cattle were down by the fences. This was in September, and evidently they had a massive cold freezing drizzle. All the cattle had come down by the fence line looking for a way out, protection, what have you. They're just laying there and sitting down, and they're frozen to death.
That's so sad. What city was that?
That was in southwestern Wyoming, if you've ever been in that area.
Back to Texas and the jobs and all that.
Well, all right, so let's just look at Houston. Of course, good news. The U.S. lost 14.7% of all their jobs. That's from February 2020 until April of 2020. 14.7%. We only lost 11.6%. That surprised me. Now, the biggest job loss, we lost 1 out of every 2 leisure and hospitality jobs. And a lot of those are still gone. In fact, United Airlines even said they expect, even when air travel resumes back to normal, that 20% of their business is permanently gone because they don't think corporations will ever travel like they used to for business. They've learned this virtual stuff's working for some of their actions and what have you. They don't have to do that. So we lost less. The bad news is the U.S. has brought back 3 out of every 4 jobs. In Houston, we've only brought back 56%. And I already referred to how, like oil and gas, change the way they do business. I guarantee you every business in the United States of America is doing the same thing. Every business. Our restaurants, 10.1 million available jobs, openings across the United States in all categories. I want you all to drive 3 miles, not on interstate highway, or even on interstate, and see how many now hiring signs you see. Any place in this country, it is unbelievable. They're starved to death. On the other hand, one of my tweets from again this past week, DRTCJ, by the way, American Restaurant Association says 90,000 plus restaurants either permanently closed or long-term closed. And then in the month of July, 40% couldn't make their rent payments. Oh, and even the worst news, and one of the tweets again from this past week, that Open Table, they make restaurant bookings and what have you. They said the 5 states where the Delta variant's just exploding right now. We're not one of them in Texas, thank heavens, right now on that. But they said that restaurant bookings are down 20%. And remember, 40% couldn't make their rent payments last month. So restaurants have changed the way they do business. I don't know if y'all have ever been to a P.F. Chang's.
Indeed.
P.F. Chang's has announced they're going to open 50 new P.F. Chang's takeout locations. No place to sit inside. Just drive up. Have your order in. 6 minutes later, you'll be driving out of the parking lot with your order. No, they're going to open up 50 of those this year. I was in Florida 3 weeks ago, near Lakeland, Florida, and went to a Carrabba's right across from my hotel. And here are 10 parking spots that are just takeout, and every one of them's full. All the lights, engines are on, and all the lights are running. So I go inside. The restaurant's packed out, and I go inside and order their meatball appetizer. I loved it, I have to say that. And so I asked the manager, I said, tell me about your takeout business. He said, we're doing more takeout business than we did on any given night in 2019 before the pandemic. And he says, and our restaurant's full too. So you're looking at how they've changed the business. Remember, they say if you do the same thing for 66 days on a row, on average, you have a new habit. Folks, this is 500 plus days and counting. We got a lot of new habits.
Well, we've had plenty of time to adjust and to think about not only business, about real estate, but our personal lives. It has been the last 2 years a time of reflection like that, and we've all evolved and all have made changes of some sort. We're talking with our chief economist at Stewart Title, Dr. Ted C. Jones, the eighth wonder in the real estate world. Ted does so much great work. He's always on top of it. Let's give, again, your Twitter handle is Dr. DRTCJ, Dr. Ted C. Jones, what it stands for. And then I have a blog. And when I'm talking about this employment numbers, it's blog.stewart.com. Not just my blogs there, but we got this security guy that this is brilliant on computer and Wi-Fi security. Y'all need to read it. Y'all need to read it. So that's right. And also, if you Google Jones on real estate, that is another way to get to the blog. Yep. Also, you have top 10 lists that people should know about. So you are not just a resource when you're on the show like you are today, but you're always a resource because you're always on top of it and you're always researching things.
I try to be. It's got to be latest information up to date, and I try to do that every day.
We're going to take a quick break and come back with Dr. Ted C. Jones, our chief economist at Stewart Title. We'll be right back.
In today's litigious society, it is imperative to have the proper insurance to offset the many risks facing your business, especially if you're a real estate broker. Your errors and omissions and cyber liability insurance can help limit the threat of these risks if you know what to look for. Not sure if your insurance addresses the risks facing your business? Contact Stewart Insurance to be confident your brokerage can withstand these risks. Stewart Insurance, 866-798-2827, stewartinsurance.com. That's stewartinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827.
And we continue with our chief economist at Stewart Title, Dr. Ted C. Jones. Ted, let's pick up at this point. How are we doing job-wise, let's say in Houston, compared to the rest of the cities around the country?
So there's 380 what they call metropolitan statistical areas. Our one is defined as Houston, the Woodlands, Sugar Land, but it includes multiple counties, Galveston, the whole works. And we're one of 380 that have job numbers reported monthly by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And if you look at and here's the key. How have we recovered? Let's go back to February 2020. Where do we sit? Well, the good news is we're in the middle third. we've brought back we're short 5% of all the jobs. In other words, we are still 5% fewer jobs than we had in February of 2020. Now, there are 32 metro areas that have more jobs today than any time in history. And that's as of July. In June, there were only 19. So we're starting to get communities, metros that are getting back to where even better they were before the pandemic. That's good news. Anyway, I'm going all the way through July of 2021, and we're still missing 5% of the jobs we had in February 2020. But remember, 32 metros now have more jobs than it had in any time. Oh, and of those 32, almost half of them are in Utah, Idaho, and Florida.
That's amazing.
Remember, those are the three states that are really booming as we speak, but only two states have recovered all their jobs, Utah and Idaho. So we're doing good on jobs, just not where we were. But remember, we got the largest office vacancy rate in the United States of America at over 31%.
Houston does.
That's
amazing.
Yeah.
How does that compare, say, with New York or...
Well, we're higher. So let's talk commercial real estate. What do you want to think? We usually talk housing, but I think it'd be fun to discuss some commercial today.
Well, commercial and residential go hand in hand in such a way, and we've heard about the great boom in residential. What about commercial here in Houston?
So first of all, let's start out at a national level. And this is a unique one. It's one of my tweets from again this week. DRTCJ on the Twitter. Y'all need to follow me. I don't talk politics, so you won't get disgusted at me. Green Street has a commercial property price index. Green Street Advisors, big real estate commercial company, global. And this is from before COVID. This is February of 2020 to now. Self-storage up 24%. Man, that's almost rivaling housing. That's pretty good. Industrial properties plus 21%. But remember that everything that we buy online e-commerce doesn't come from a storefront. It comes from an industrial building. That demand's gone up for whether it's cold space for stocking grocery stores because we're buying so much more at the grocery stores to everything you buy from Amazon and everyone else like that. Manufactured home parks, housing affordability is coming into play. It's a big one. We'll talk about that in a few minutes about Houston. Up 13%, their value, the manufactured home parks. Apartments, they're only up 1%. And part of that is some people are still uncomfortable with close quarters. Some people aren't. But apartment value is overall 1%. Good news is that if you're B and C apartments, let me tell you what, there's three kind of classes of apartments. A apartments, they got granite or quartz countertops. They got, laminates, nice hardwoods on the floor. Yeah, they got all that stuff. We built too many of those in many cities. And yet we haven't built a B or C apartment. B or C apartments have got Formica counters and vinyl flooring. It's what middle-class America lives in, a lot of them that rent, fair enough. They can't afford the other. We've torn down a lot of B and C apartments in the past 20 years. Haven't built any new ones because when you build new ones, you build the Class A because the land's so valuable. B and C apartments are up by more, but apartments are up. 1% net lease properties. What's a net lease property? You see a standalone pizzeria or a drugstore, whether it's Walgreens or Rite Aid or CVS or anyone else like that. Very often those buildings are privately owned investors. And they do a net lease, very often a 21-year lease with rights to renewal with escalations. And the tenant pays, we call them triple net, tenant pays for taxes, insurance, and maintenance and all that kind of stuff. Those are up 1%. All property and value, all commercial real estate values are down 1%. Offices, strip centers down 7%. Offices down 8% in value. And malls down 18% in value. In fact, Google and Amazon have now converted part or all of 25 super regional shopping centers to literally industrial distribution facilities.
You're reading my mind because I was going to ask you about that. I remember when they were talking about that, so they've actually done that in some places.
Now that said, commercial real estate in the first 7 months this year, these are Real Capital Analytics data numbers. Commercial real estate sales are at 44% compared to a year ago. But remember, they were down a bunch a year ago. Last year, April, May, and June were very difficult months. Bleak, uncertainty. So we're seeing that. On the other hand, the average cap rate's up. Capitalization rates are simply a measure of risk. Value is equal to income divided by the cap rate. They're up about 11.8%, not to 11.8%, but for example, office cap rates are 8.8%. Hotel cap rates are, y'all get it. The riskier the property, the lower the cap rate. All right, so Hotel cap rates are 3.8%. Office cap rates 8.8%. Now, let's go back to offices. What are we going to do with all this office space? 3 out of every 10 square feet, at least in Houston, Texas, is vacant today. And the way we've adapted, how many of y'all think that you didn't need an office last year, even though you had one? You still did, for example, Stewart Title. A few of us go to the office every day that I'm in town. I know the CEO is almost always there. Head of HR, our CIO, I'm on the same floor as those people. Everyone else is producing from their homes. We just had the best quarter in history at Stewart Title. We're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Kind of amazing because people were doing their jobs, but just didn't need to do it in the office building. But here's one of my tweets this past week. This is a study of Boston landlords and office owners, what they're doing to attract people back to the office. And I think we're going to see more and more of this. Number one, outdoor spaces. We're going to see a lot more. Well, we're comfortable outside. Look how much outdoor dining we've done. And you have even our office building where we're currently at. We got these nice chairs, comfortable chairs that the landlords put out there in a beautiful patio area and what have you. Daycares. You want to bring people back to work, they're going to have to take care of their children too. And daycare is another one. Shared sports courts. Now, it used to be that you'd have a facility and what have you. Now, the office owner is saying, hey, I got all this space. Why don't I just put in sports courts and get these people back in the office? Food courts. Food's important to us when we're at work. And I think our bosses in corporate America likes it. You don't have to walk far to get it because you'll be back at your desk. We're going to see ongoing. We're going to see a large number of conversions to housing, to laboratory space, research space. We just don't need as much office space. You'll see some of that in my tweets. One of them earlier this year, Alexandria, Virginia, 66,000 square foot office building, 4 stores vacant, 1 block from the waterfront. It's going to become 54 condos. That's going to be more and more. People like conveniences, like one stop. I go to my office, I park, don't get out of my building, I come back, I go home. They want dry cleaning. We're going to see more healthcare providers, physicians, dentists. You mentioned, going to your doc and your dentist and everything else like that. Oh, and retail. Retail, when it comes back, it's going to be very, very convenient on the office space side. So offices, some will do well. They can provide what people are looking for. 2019, there was a CBRE study. They analyzed over 200 buildings. What they found out was rents were 18% greater in buildings that had those kind of amenities. I think this is where people are going to gravitate towards. Kind of like that corporate CEO. I want to live where I like to live, and that'll be help on it. So let's talk industrial. Let's talk commercial real estate sales now.
Well, one of the things as you were talking about the warehouses, and when you order stuff, they come from warehouses. Anyway, here in Houston, all you have to do is go up 99 north on 10 and just look around at what's happening, and then you see what's happening. But also, you see so much land, and I'm talking about north of I-10. 99 going north to 45 or 59, wherever your stop is. It's fascinating, the potential of that land and what's happening right now. The Amazon, FedEx, all these things. Very interesting.
So let's talk commercial sales real quick. And I'm going to go back to the third quarter of last year. Remember, third quarter last year was dark and bleak, and we didn't have a vaccine yet or anything else like that. In the U.S., commercial real estate sales, and I'll just round them off, dropped 53%. In the third quarter of last year, compared to the third quarter of 2019. In Texas, it was down 52%. In Houston, it was down 70% because we just didn't have the headwind of the pandemic. We had oil that was super cheap then. But let's fast forward. In the second quarter of this year, now remember, second quarter of last year was awful. But in the second quarter of this year, U.S. commercial real estate sales were up 176%. Texas was up 344%. Houston up 316%. So our commercial sales recovered at twice the rate of the U.S. And I think people are now seeing that, it's a great time to come back and do business in Texas and even in Houston. So a lot of people, Florida I know is the same way, and we're doing great on that one. Housing, you want to talk housing?
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say you're a real estate agent in Houston, Texas. We have that may be our prime listener. If you're a real estate agent right here, you've done pretty well for the most part. What can that real estate agent expect, you think, for the rest of the year here in Houston and maybe the first half of next year if we could see that far?
So I think right now we're looking at the next 12 months being really good. In fact, you should have had a record 12 months in the prior 12 months. You should almost equal that, if not slightly exceed it or slightly shorten it in the next 12 months. And that's all predicated on interest rates staying relatively affordable. Fannie Mae thinks they will. The MBA doesn't think that they will. Depends on how quick the Federal Reserve tapers and quits buying those bonds and those mortgage-backed securities, which impact interest rates. But I think we're looking at another great 10, 12 months in front of us.
Good time to buy.
Great time to buy. In fact, you look at rents, and we'll get that to the minute, but here's the latest from Houston Association of Realtors, and this is July of this year compared to July of last year. Single-family home sales were down 6.1% this July compared to last year, but July last year they were up a bunch because we didn't have a lot of closings in April, May, or June, and a lot of people decided I need to close because I'm staying at home and I want a nice house. So our July last year was an all-time record July. If we're only down 6.1%, our median sales price is up 13.9% on single family in the Houston MSA. Now, I want y'all to get on the homework, and don't worry, I'll write this number down because I'm going to tell you about the main 4 counties in Houston, both single family and townhouse condo sales. But let's compare it to the U.S. In the U.S., in the first 7 months this year, total home sales were up 18.5%. 18.5%. So now let's talk about single family, which makes up 91 out of every 100 homes sold in the Houston metro area. 91 out of 100 are single family. We're a single family market. There's other, but don't get me wrong. Our home sales are up 20.1% in that same period of time. But here's what's amazing about the U.S., about Houston. Our home sales above $1 million are more than double in the first 7 months this year compared to last year. Wow. Most in history. We've never sold, and this is only 4 counties. This is Fort Bend, Galveston, Harris, and Montgomery. This is just those 4 major counties. There's more counties than Metro. Up 107.6%. We closed in the first 7 months this year, and this is a preliminary number, 1,881 homes above $1 million. We never had, first 7 months, had 1,000 home sales. Now, we are seeing a decline in home sales below $250,000. That's because there's nothing left to buy. If you own one of those homes and you want to sell it, you put it on the market and expect to get a lot more than you're asking for it. We're seeing bidding wars on that because there's no inventory.
And all anyone has to do is go to har.com and just look around like you're looking for a house, plug in $300,000, pick an area, and they're all pending for the most part.
And remember this one. This is another neat thing about Houston. Bob Hell and the Houston Association of Realtors leadership back in the late 90s, they were the first realtor association, har.com, that put a consumer-facing website that allowed you to search for homes online. That was unheard of at that point in time, and my hat's off to that leadership. So let's talk townhouse condos. In Houston, they're up 46.4%. First 7 months of this year compared to 7 months last year. Now, 2 reasons for that. Part of it was at early onset of the pandemic in 2020, we didn't know how contagious this was. A lot of people felt uncomfortable in close proximity. So we're really down. But we're literally 46.4%. In fact, guys, realize this. We sold 16 townhouse condos above $1 million in those 4 counties in the first 7 months this year. The most we'd ever sold in history was 16 in 2018. So we tied the all-time record for the first 7 months. And one of the reasons making townhouse condos so hot is affordability.
As everything's going up.
Everything's going up. In fact, depending on who you believe, whether Fannie Mae is correct in their interest rate housing price forecast or MBA is, that means from 2020 to 2022, the average monthly principal and interest payment, assuming you put 80% down, is going up between 24% and 32%. Those are huge increases. And that's why townhouse condos are coming into play. Now, homeowners, if you're a current homeowner, you want to sell, we still have opportunities for you. In fact, I will tell you this. This is one of my tweets again from this past week. Did you know that 38% of homeowners surveyed by Bankrate could not tell you what their interest rate was? 38, that's 4 out of 10. And right now, remember, interest rates are still below 3%. If you got one at 4%, you're going to be in your home at least 3 years. You need to call your local lender. Refinance. You'll save thousands of dollars per year.
Well, Ted, we have about a minute and a half left. Before we leave, we're talking with Dr. Ted C. Jones, our chief economist at Stewart Title. What else should people know? So much. They can follow you at DRTCJ, your Twitter handle, but also Jones on Real Estate. They can Google that. They can go to Stewart.com and find you there as well. But what else should people know in the last minute and a half?
So here again, I love these tweets. This is from CNBC, and Glassdoor is one of the largest online facilitators, so you can post resumes at job searches. Share of online job searches for remote positions are up 460% this June compared to June of 2019, which says a lot of people are truly believing that this work from home thing sustains itself. That means housing is going to be hot for demand as that continues. Remember I said new habits cause us to do that. And the other thing that's making home-owned housing so attractive is the monthly median rent is now $1,607. In 15 of the top 30 markets in the U.S., your monthly principal and interest payment is less than your monthly median rent, which says in over half the markets now, despite high home prices, but thank heavens to low interest rates, half of them you're still better off owning than renting.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ted C. Jones. We're going to have to stop there, Ted. In the meantime, they could find you, again, DRTCJ on Twitter, Jones on Real Estate on Google, Stewart.com. You'll find them there, the blogs, the top 10 list, all those things. Ted, thank you so much for being on the show. He's going to come back in a couple months. And also, I want to make mention that our business development people, Ted will be speaking around the Houston area and even beyond. If you happen to be listening from outside of the Houston area, just stay close to your Stewart Title Business Development Officer. Thanks, Ted.
Adios.
If you're a real estate professional, then listen closely. Cyber criminals are targeting our industry. They are impersonating real estate professionals, homebuyers, sellers, and title agents. Their goal is to gain access to your inboxes, computers, and clients so they can steal information and funds. Does your business insurance offset these risks? Not sure? Contact Stewart Insurance to determine if your business is properly insured. Visit stewartinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827. Visit stewartinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827.
Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title would not be possible without our partner, Stewart Insurance, with a focus in real estate and a special focus on real estate brokers. Stewart Insurance creates insurance plans to address the risks facing our industry today. They invest a significant amount of time helping real estate broker owners offset and manage their risks. Here he is, John Bramlett with Stewart Insurance. Hey, John, welcome back.
Thank you, Bill. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Well, we love talking about insurance. So today you always bring something forth that's very important for us, and sometimes you even remind us about things that are important. So what should we talk about today?
Let's do a little reminding today. Just wanted to make sure that our listeners, since we have so many new ones each week, that a little bit about Stewart Insurance and what we do and how we help our clients and how we think our procedures and our points of view are what makes us special and allows us to truly properly insure our clients.
And that's right. I'm going to tag on to that phrase that you just used, especially for those that are new, wherever they are. Being properly insured is so important, and that's what Stewart Insurance is all about.
Absolutely. We are a property and casualty insurance broker, which means we are an independent insurance agency, and there are two types of insurance agencies. There's the independent and there's a captive. A captive agent would be one that would be limited to one or two insurance companies or insurance partners that could provide them plan options for their clients. As an independent, we have a variety of insurance partners that we work with, both for the personal insurance services as well as the business insurance services. So that first distinction is that independent. So we have more options to help our clients be better insured and properly insured. We are owned by Stewart Title, which is, as you know, and I'm sure our listeners know, is a leading real estate services company worldwide. our insurance focus is within the real estate industry. So with on the personal line side, we generally begin with a client's homeowners or renters insurance, but we can obviously broaden beyond that to a variety of different products and services. And on the business insurance side, we'll work with property managers, real estate brokers, realtors, and title and attorney agents. We truly try to focus on this idea of being the most admired insurance resource for real estate. And we do that by positively impacting lives by properly insuring people better. And that simply means that when we work with a client, we take the time to find out what their concerns are, what their needs are, what their life or their business is like, so that when they do make a decision, that they are comfortable with that decision and they know what risk they've taken on themselves versus what risk they've put onto the insurance company.
And that's right. As an example, as far as homeowners insurance, there's a lot of things other than just having insurance. There's a lot of options or considerations as far as water seepage and these kinds of things. There's and deductibles is another choice, and that helps as you help people tailor, like you were saying, what they want by learning about them. Some people may want a higher deductible, some people lower. So you're there to fit these needs together.
Absolutely. So I think that's an excellent example that if you have a 1,200 foot 2-bedroom 1-bath home and you have one individual and you rarely or if ever entertain, your homeowner's needs are significantly different if you had a 2-story or 3-story 5,000 square foot home with a swimming pool or a trampoline, or you had multiple people living in the home, or you had different types of dogs. There's all those kinds of things are important to have those conversations with your insurance advisor, so that that you do understand what your coverage is, you do understand what you've taken on versus what you've placed onto the insurance partner. So that really becomes that idea of being properly insured.
And with the pace of the market, we know homes are selling all over the United States at a rapid pace. I think one of the markets, and there's a lot of reasons, but one of those markets, I think there are people that, and interest rates are low, thus people that have money in the bank are choosing to take that money out, buy second, third homes, investment properties. So these individuals have certain insurance needs. They've evolved where they need more insurance, so they really have to take care to have that homeowner's insurance for the second home, the third home, and maybe when they do, they may want to go with higher deductibles on the first to keep that package, that financial outlay at a certain place. So a lot of things going on that insurance is there to help, and especially now.
Absolutely, and depending upon how that second home is used, it may not be a homeowner's policy. It may be a vacation, or it may be vacant home policy. So it really depends on how that home is used and how it's occupied. So again, that's that idea of taking the time to visit with somebody that, when they're visiting with you, you have the feeling that nothing else matters, that they've taken the time to understand your specific situation. So, they can align what you're trying to accomplish and what your needs are with the proper insurance plan. And then make sure that you're empowered to make that right decision, that you understand what those options are, and it really then you have the confidence to make that right decision.
That's right. And once again, people, especially those that are just tuning in, Stewart Insurance is part of Stewart Title, but they are right there as a company to help you with all your insurance needs, whether it for your personal needs, for your home, your investment, but also especially if you're a real estate broker, you have a whole menu of things right there for the real estate professionals at stewartinsurance.com, and everybody can see the full menu at stewartinsurance.com. And I think it's your web page is laid out so nicely, and there's some great information there as we talk to people every week. That's just a great resource to go. As we're reminding, I'm going to remind you to go to stewartinsurance.com. What do you think, John?
Well, I appreciate that, Bill. More and more when we're making decisions on any kind of transaction that we begin online. And, Brittany Tackard and our team has done a really nice job in building out that website. So you can see if you're if you're looking for personal insurance services, you can see that we can provide home coverage or flood or wind, auto and umbrella, home warranty, or a natural hazard disclosure if you're one of our clients in California. And if you're a real estate business, a title and attorney agent, a real estate broker, property manager, real estate agent, mortgage banker, then you can look at having an errors and omissions policy or cyber liability coverage, business owners policies, commercial property or workers' compensation, just to name a few of the different plans that we offer for our business insurance services clients.
In fact, on the website, it's beautifully done. Right there on the very first page, of course, make confident insurance decisions. However, I like how it says build your plan. As individuals, we need to build our plan to be properly insured, and as business owners, same thing, build our plan. That's a great way to put it.
Absolutely. Look at how many folks are in the household. How many folks are driving. Do you entertain? What kind of amenities do you have in the house? What kind of things do you need covered? How on the business side, how many employees do you have? What is your gross commissionable revenue? Are your folks working remotely, or are they working in the office? Do you have an office, and if so, do you own that office or do you rent it? And if you do, what's the value of that commercial property? Are you concerned about folks being hurt on the property or your employees being hurt on the property? And what kind of coverage could help offset those risks? So those are, again, the types of questions and conversations that we have with our clients, whether they be on the personal insurance side or the business insurance side, to help make sure that they are properly insured.
And John, before we close this important reminding segment about insurance, what else should we know?
Well, if you would like to have a conversation with us about being properly insured, whether it be for your personal needs or business needs or both, please give us a call at 866-798-2827. That's 866-798-2827, or you can email us at stewartinsurance@stewart.com.
I love that phone number. I want to say it, in fact, 866-798-2827. John, thanks again for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, John Bramlett, 866-798-2827. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Bill. It's always a pleasure.
We thank you all for listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Once again, simply go to stewart.com/radio. That's stewart.com/radio. You can see and hear all the shows, especially with a show like this with all the facts and figures. You want to hear this one again at stewart.com/radio, and we'll see you next week.
In today's litigious society, it is imperative to have the proper insurance to offset the many risks facing your business, especially if you're a real estate broker. Your errors and omissions and cyber liability insurance can help limit the threat of these risks if you know what to look for. Not sure if your insurance addresses the risks facing your business? Contact Stewart Insurance to be confident your brokerage can withstand these risks. Stewart Insurance, 866-798-2827. StewartInsurance.com. That's StewartInsurance.com, or call 866-798-2827. If you're a real estate professional, then listen closely. Cyber criminals are targeting our industry. They are impersonating real estate professionals, homebuyers, sellers, and title agents. Their goal is to gain access to your inboxes. Call 866-798-2827.